Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Paris Fan Club channel series, which I've created to explore with you the magic of Paris and France and all things French. We have an exciting show for you today called Paris or Bust, where we will talk to two women of a certain age whose love for Paris really goes beyond a few visits here and there. They've both decided for different reasons to make Paris their home, or at least their part-time home, as moving to Paris is a process, as they will explain. They are with us today direct from Paris. They are Audrey Edwards and Lisa Anselmo to the right of Audrey. Hello, ladies, and thank you so much for joining us. We're going
to be here.
Good. We're going to be hearing from where you are in Paris and all of that. But before we get going, let me introduce our sponsor, because we have a sponsor for this program, which works wonderfully with our subject today. So here's the slide. Do you dream of living in Paris? Well, you might be thinking that way after this broadcast, and you can certainly make it happen with buyer's agent Christine Bacoup-Titus. Christine is a French-American lawyer, and she helps people who want to find an apartment or a property, or the right property, to buy in Paris. She can manage every step of the process, from finding the right property for you to navigating the necessary legal steps, which are quite comprehensive, to finding and arranging contractors, interior designers, the works. It's like having a personal advocate in your court who is not only working in your best interest, but really cares about what you want, thereby taking all the complexity and the stress out of the transaction. So Christine joins us today too from Paris, and she's just going to wave to us a little bit. Hello, Christine. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good. Well, thank you for being our sponsor. And of course, we'll be hearing more about you later. Now, let me also bring in Marc Caron, who is, along with our team in Vancouver, producing today's program and monitoring the chat for questions. In the chat, you probably already started. Let us know where you're from, because we have a big group today and you're probably from all over the world. And if you have some sort of question that you'd like to ask during the program, just put it in the chat and Mark will keep track of it. And also you can put your hand up. There is a little feature that could let us know, and we can come directly to you if you'd rather do it that way. So hello, Mark and Peter and everybody. Have you ever dreamed of moving to Paris, Mark?
Well, I've thought about it with a French heritage and a name like Macaron.
That's
France
right.
and Paris would be an interesting place to be.
Yeah, but you haven't done it, right?
No, I haven't.
No, me neither. But of course, I dream about it all the time.
I live vicariously about Paris through you, Diana.
Yeah. Well, still, I don't live there. But, because going to live there is a whole nother thing. So as our guests know. So let me get to them right now. So I'll start with Audrey. Audrey is originally from Tacoma, Washington, and more recently, New York. She has had a very successful career in publishing, where she held senior titles on a variety of primarily Black-owned and women-oriented media. And she's an award-winning journalist, appearing in publications from the New York Times to Glamour to Redbook, interviewing all sorts of influencers, including Oprah Winfrey. Audrey is also the author of 7 books, including the latest one around which this program has been tailored, called American Runaway: Black and Free in Paris in the Trump Years. Oh yes, folks, that is the clue that made her run away to Paris. My second guest is Lisa Anselmo, who also ran away to Paris, but for other reasons, and is also highly accomplished. Lisa is, too, also from New York City, and spent most of her professional career also in publishing, working for a multitude of magazine brands that included Allure, Mademoiselle, InStyle, and People. Lisa is also a coach helping writers, startups, and other individuals who want to develop and market their stories and brands to connect fully with their audience or target market. She has a blog about her life in Paris and has also authored a memoir about her journey called My Part-Time Paris Life: How Running Away Brought Me Home. Love that. Lisa has a series on YouTube called, by the same name, My Part-Time Paris Life, which showcases Parisians and expats who, like her, have taken a risk to change their lives. And since she is one of them, she's a perfect guest for today's program. Phew. Okay, I'm just skimming the surface of all that I can tell you about these two ladies. So it's up to them now. So welcome, ladies. So great to have you here.
Great to be here.
Great. Okay, well, I'm just going to start off right at the beginning and say, first of all, do you know each other? I think you do.
We do.
Yeah, and how's that?
How do we know each other?
Yeah.
Through another publishing giant who
Which
connected
is?
us.
Okay.
Myrna Blythe.
Ah, neat.
She's now at AARP, but I worked with her at Lady Some Journal, and I know that you worked with her a lot of places, Audrey, and she connected us because she knew we were both here.
She did. She did.
And is it because the expat community is small in Paris, or was this just a coincidence?
Well, Myrna knew that we both lived in Paris and thought we should meet.
Mm-hmm.
Really how that happened.
All right. Well, let's start at the
New
beginning.
York.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. You have that in common too. So you both have something in common, and that is you can both talk about in your stories that you ran away to Paris, but for entirely different reasons. So Audrey, I know yours is your book was just fascinating. So let's start with you, and tell us why you left America, really, to come to start your life in Paris.
You know, Diane, a lot of people say during a presidential election, if the opponent wins, they're going to leave the country.
Sure.
And that's what I had said about Donald Trump, never expecting that he would win. And when he did, I just felt it was time. I thought I'd be retiring and going to Paris for a few months and kind of chilling, and that he would be gone during the first 3-month litmus test. I just thought, I'd be taking 3 months off. And in short order, it became clear that he was going to be around for the full term. And I had to then decide, how am I going to stay in Paris on a more permanent basis? But my original thinking was that I was just taking a break.
Yeah, and not to get into it too deeply because your book does that so well. Why was Trump really the catalyst for you actually move out of your own country?
I've said about Trump, he is the one president who had never been elected to anything. He'd never been even a hall room monitor, as far as I know. He'd never been captain of any team. He'd never been elected by peers, by a larger populace before running for president. So to me, it was just ludicrous that someone who had absolutely no elective experience, to say nothing of government experience, was suddenly the president of the most powerful country in the world. I thought the country had sort of gone insane, to tell you the truth.
And that scared you?
Absolutely.
Interesting, because we don't hear too many people who actually left for that reason.
Right.
I'm going to jump to Lisa, and then I'm going to come back to why Paris. But Lisa, your story is not political like that, but you have, I think your book is so emotional at the beginning about losing your mom and how that was kind of the big spur for you. But then you actually use the phrase Paris or bust when your job kind of dissolved in a way. You can explain it to us. And you just said, okay, that's it. I'm doing this. So tell us a little bit about how it happened for you.
Well, my mother was a huge part of my life. So when she passed away, I was completely lost. I was in my early 40s and I hadn't built a life on my own terms. Everything was mom, 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 which is intense to realize. So I just started to look for an apartment just really as something joyful and hopeful, an apartment in Paris. And then I actually went ahead and did it. And the book gets into that in detail. And it was just a place like a pied-à-terre. Yeah. But the publishing industry was starting to implode. And I could see my job getting smaller and smaller instead of bigger and bigger. And I just didn't want to be there at the industry's funeral. So I took a package and I took the leap.
Wow. But that was a big deal, wasn't it?
Huge. None of that was easy for someone like me who follows the rules and always gets straight A's and safe thing all the time. Just to buy the apartment in Paris was such a huge leap for me that it changed my entire personality. It rewired me to make me more daring and more hopeful and I took more risks, one after the other.
Yes.
It started with just a desire to be happy, and then it grew from there.
Well, and ladies, both jump in. Why was Paris this place to go that you wanted to go? I mean, I have noticed even in my own life that Paris is kind of a restorative place. Was that part of the reason, or was it just this love of Paris and the lifestyle? What was it for the both of you? Jump in, anybody here.
I've always loved Paris, and Paris has a history among Black Americans in particular dating back to World War One. I have friends in Paris. My college roommate, Joe Lowry, married a Frenchman. They divorced, but she remained. Two of her children are here. So she was someone that represented the touchstone in terms of a place I could go and be with someone who could help navigate a city where I still don't speak the language. And
yes, I'm coming to that.
A retired professor from America who was the cousin of a next door neighbor in Sag Harbor when I owned a home there. So I had two people who represented a base. And for me, that was very important. I would never take on a city like Paris where I didn't speak the language, not knowing it.
No, not normally.
So
No, and Lisa, what about you in just terms of,
Yeah,
you've been going to Paris before you moved, but why
Yeah,
Paris?
I had been. Paris grew on me because I was never one of those people who thought Paris is the be all end all and I absolutely have to live there. I never had that dream. In fact, the second chapter of my book is called Paris Was an Accident.
Yeah.
But it grew on me, and it was really the friends I had here, Parisian at the time. I didn't have a lot of expat friends. They're the ones that helped me create this like a safe haven where I was fully myself and could find myself again and find joy again. And so Paris became the launch pad for the rest of my life. It's really, the city, of course, is a wonderful city, and it's easy. New York and Paris are two cities that seem to work well together for me. But it was really the people that made it the place, like made it a destination place for the next part of my life.
Well, it's the energy, ladies, similar in New York, or you find it completely different between, because both huge cities, right?
Very similar. And I'm a big city person. I like big cities. I come from a small town in Washington State, and I knew growing up I was never a small town person. So Paris and New York are very similar in that they are large, cosmopolitan, exciting, multicultural cities, which works for me.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Same,
The
Lisa?
biggest difference for me is you can sit on the terrace, cafe terrace, or sidewalk cafe, as they say in New York, all day long if you want.
All day long.
And that is something I did when I go to New York, I miss. That to me is one of the reasons I love the European lifestyle is I live in cafes and they bring me joy. And that is really very much a part of the convivial, slightly slower paced energy that Paris has over New York. And this idea of life revolving around food and family and friends.
Oh boy, when most of us are listening, we can relate. That's a really good specification to it. Is the cafe sitting there all day long? You can. Yeah, it's wonderful. All right, so we've already done the reason then. And Mark, I skipped that slide. So go to the slide called the how, which is, there we go. So this is a big deal. People don't just go and say, okay, I'm going to move to Paris and plunk themselves down, right? Without going into too much detail about what's involved. What do you have to do first, though, as somebody who's thinking about migrating there bit by bit?
Well, as a real estate broker in New York, my second profession after being a magazine writer.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
I'm still a magazine writer. But as we brokers say, you got to know somebody. And in this case, Joe Lowry, my friend and college roommate, worked at the American University of Paris. And it was at a Christmas party, that I met a Frenchman who became my landlord. He had a studio that he typically rented out to AUP students. At the time I met him, someone was living in the apartment, but at the time I was ready to make the move to Paris. I called him and it was available, which meant I didn't have to go through a broker. I didn't have to pay fees.
Yeah.
I could see the apartment. And it was really a godsend. And he and I are still very good friends. I don't live in the apartment anymore, but I now live in an apartment next door to Joe. And where you see me sitting is actually her apartment because it's a lot hipper than mine.
Okay, good.
And I got the apartment through her.
Wow.
So it's about for me.
But did you have to get like a 3-month visa to go first? Is that the first step? What can you get? Did you just go as a tourist?
The visas that you get, and Lisa may know this better, it's automatically 3 months. I've never stayed longer
Exactly.
than 3 months, which means
The visa waiver, it's automatic. It's 3 months.
Is that
Yeah. And then there's a visitor's visa, which is renewable every year. And then there's a whole host of other kinds of visas that you can take. Obviously, I mean, Audrey, you lucked out. I have to say that is not easy what you did. And for most people, the way to get here is to do your research first. And I didn't do it. So this is do as I say, not as I do, folks. A relocation expert, if you can afford the fee, is so worth the money. Like your sponsor, you know, because they will look for you. You know, it's very hard to just walk into a real estate agency and expect they're going to really do the work for you. They're trying to push property for renting. It's very hard to rent in Paris. You usually have to have a work contract. If you're buying, it's different. But, you know, a specialist in that area is worth every penny because it makes the transition joyful instead of painful. And there are so many things you don't know, and what you don't know really can hurt you. Not hurt you, but it can foil the dream. So, and it's, I think I'm hiccuping. Sorry, I have a very bad reception.
No, good advice.
Yeah, really do the research, and do the research not just in terms of what you need to do. There's plenty of expat real estate groups, expat groups and the social media and Facebook, and also do the research in terms of where you want to live.
That's important.
Very important.
So where did the two of you end up? Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We're in the same district, I think.
We are.
Okay.
But
where would you describe that in Paris? Where is that?
Oh,
It's
the
the
11th arrondissement, which Lisa has been here longer, so she can talk more to what the neighborhood is like, which I like very much.
Yeah, it's a big, I mean, most arrondissements, it's a big one. It goes from central Paris, north central Paris, all the way to the east. And it's very diverse.
Yeah.
It's diverse
Very
culturally,
trendy.
it's diverse in terms of personalities, and the different neighborhoods are all very different. It's young, it's very hip, i.e. loud, but it's great and vital and slightly more affordable than some of the more famous ones like the 6th, the 7th.
Oh, and up and coming too. I mean, the people talk about the 11th a lot. Well, that's exciting. Mark, we've got a slide just to do the where they live. So I want to show that slide for a minute. Yeah. Audrey, this is the gentleman that was your landlord. Is that correct?
First landlord in the 6th, a lovely, lovely she neighborhood.
No kidding.
It's one I called it a cross between the West Side and the Lincoln Center area, the East Side and Lincoln Center.
Beautiful.
My apartment was about the size of a postage stamp, but I wanted to make the point when I rented the apartment next door to Joe, it was the beginning of COVID.
That's right. Good point.
I occupied the apartment for a whole year, but I took it because the rent was very good, and I just felt I wanted to have an out. So even if I couldn't get to it for a year, I felt it was worth taking and holding on to, and I'm very glad. I'm very glad.
Smart move. Yeah. You know, in terms of let's move on to the language and culture, because this is a huge one for everybody. Is that, you know, where were you two in your language development when you decided to make this decision?
I was nowhere. I took Spanish in high school, and
Good for you. Yeah.
Age, and learning a new language at my age, which is Social Security age, is really tough. If not impossible. I still don't speak French.
Yeah.
And so how do you do it? Before I go to Lisa, how do you do it now?
You know, I have to thank the French because they speak English. Their English
more and more, right?
My French, it really is. I mean, and that's the limitation of American culture. We are a monolingual culture, and that's a true limitation.
Right.
But so French.
But they didn't always speak French. I mean, I think it's a relatively new thing. I think the younger people speak more French, more English rather. They didn't always speak English, I should say. Like they really, really didn't. And my neighborhood, when I moved into it, nobody spoke English. But now that's 10 years later, it's changed a lot. So, and I thought I spoke French because I studied for 6 years, and then I moved here and realized I didn't know what these people were saying at all.
I mean, I want to point out because in your book, I laughed so hard at this chapter because you did a perfect impression of when people were speaking to you. What did it sounded like? So, can you do that impression for us a little bit?
Yeah, so I catch every third word, so it'd be something like, "Can I fall? Show you the fall? Here, take a look at this fall. Yes, fall."
I totally relate to that. It really does sound like that, you know.
I love that too in your book. I
And you're
love
going,
Fall.
"What the hell?"
But it's better now. Now I can
Yes.
say I speak French. I work in French. Yeah, it's taken time.
Well, that's fantastic. And how many years have you actually been going to Paris, Lisa?
Sorry.
When did you start going to Paris? How many years ago?
Well, on a regular basis, 2002. And I'll
Yeah,
go
so
twice
it's
a
been a
year to
while.
write about the fashion shows. Mhm.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. Well, you're practically a native now. And do you still have a 3-month visa and go back and forth?
No, I have an annual visa that I renew once a year, and I'm looking to turn that into a 10-year.
Is that a big process?
Yeah. Like all the
I heard the
it's like
10-year
any
one is a
bureaucracy. It's a
process.
big-
And,
I'm going to get a lawyer for this one. I'm not doing it
Yeah.
on my own.
Good for you. And Audrey, will you get a year visa? Are you going to go after that?
I don't think so. I've talked to friends who have done it, and it's a process that I'm not really up for.
Yeah, too. Yeah.
And a lot depends on what happens in America. But right now, I'm pretty happy going back and forth. And I don't compare myself to James Baldwin as a writer, certainly, but it's something he did for 10 years. I'm sure he had a long-term visa, but during the 10 years that he resided in Paris, he continually went back and forth.
Yeah.
You know, partly to be in the civil rights movement, but you know, he talked about I'm an American, and there was always that pull.
Yeah.
I don't feel the same way politically, but I have a son, I have granddaughters, family, so I'm not ever going to leave them permanently. That's just reality.
Okay. And for those
go back and forth too.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know James Baldwin, he's a very famous American writer who ended up living in Paris. And if you take I took a wonderful tour in Paris, the Black Tour, and it was all about the authors and stuff who had been through Paris. It was wonderful, but I learned quite a bit about him then. So that's who Audrey is referring to. Let me also make the point too that this is not a political program. Audrey's views are her own views. And we're not really getting into that aspect of it. It was just the decision that she made based on her decisions to improve her life, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay.
I have Trump to thank for that, actually. I have him to thank for that.
Yes. Yes. Got you to Paris, right? All right. So let's go to making friends and integrating into the community, okay? Because from other people that I know, this for them was probably the hardest thing to do, because depending on how outgoing they were or who they knew there, they found it very difficult to break in to even the Parisian French community, but also maybe a little easier to get into the expat community. What did you ladies find out?
I was talking to a friend last night about this at a party. What we talked about is the fact among the Black American expats, there is a natural synergy because we are kindred spirits to begin with.
Mm-hmm. True.
Those of us who came, we may have come for different reasons, but we shared a sensibility, a love of Parisian culture, a love of the French, a love of the attitudes around race. So it was easier to meet people of like minds because that's who's here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you've made a lot of friends through those connections.
And there are organizations. There's an organization called Sister Circle.
Perfect.
A group of women from throughout the diaspora. And it's not just Black American women, it's African women, it's Caribbean women,
lovely.
It's white women, European white women. So that was a natural group in which to meet people. And there was a woman who has since died named Patricia LaPlante Collins. who had a regular social group where people of all backgrounds came together on a regular basis to just meet, talk, drink, get to know each other. And that was another way of meeting people. And it was wonderful.
Oh, that's terrific. And Lisa, you started out really jumping into the Parisian French community when you started.
I did. I met first the chef de concierge at the Hilton where we used to stay, my friend and I, and he introduced me to his friends. And then I met a shopkeeper in the Sixth, and from him I met a whole community of people. It just happened that way, and luckily they spoke English as well as French, and that helped me to have the best of both worlds, so I could be immersed in the Parisian daily life, but with that safety net of understanding what the heck they were saying. And then from there, I did start to branch out into the expat community. And it's Audrey says is correct. There's affinity groups out there that are, if you do come here, absolutely find them, reach out to them, get that support, because you'll need it, not just for friendship, but just to help you navigate the pitfalls of daily life, the strokes and slaps, I like to say, of Parisian life.
Well, and you also got into dating a little bit too. Your book is so good about that. Tell us just a little bit about that, or something funny that happened maybe.
Oh, well, I haven't had much luck with Frenchmen for whatever reason. It's cultural, I really do believe. They
really? Okay.
And I hate to generalize. I don't want to generalize, but I'm meeting older men, obviously, and it's different culture than the younger men. They're much more French centric. Culturally, there's this sexism there that's buried. It's insidious in a lot of ways. Always telling you what to do, how to do it, treating you like your child. There was a lot of that. So I stepped out of that world a bit. And I actually dated for 3 years another expat, a Turkish man, believe it or not. We cleaved to each other in our journey to integrate into French world. But yeah, it's definitely a way to really jump both feet into the culture, is to date somebody in that culture. And you either navigate it well and have friends that married French men, or you, like me, say, I think I'm going to take a break from this.
Good for you, enjoying the single life, right? Yeah, why not? And Audrey, do I dare ask you that question?
Diana, it's not that I am past the dating stage. I don't feel that. I would say my only suitor, if you want to call him that, has been my French landlord, who's really delightful in many ways. He wines and dines, and we've gone dancing. He's really a great friend.
Oh, wow, great.
And I feel fortunate to have him. I mean, half the time I'm fussing at him and, cussing him out because we do have cultural differences. But it's nice to have his attention. I'll be honest about that. But in terms of dating, no, I'm really not dating in Paris. I'm really not dating in Brooklyn, to tell you the truth.
Okay. Well, you do tell the story of your landlord taking you to lunch to meet his mother.
Yes.
And wondering what that was going to be about, because at home that would mean something more, right?
Right. There are cultural differences. I mean, when you do that in America, it means, oh my God, he's going to propose. So I was a little taken aback, and it turned out it was just a lovely thing to do on a rainy day. His mother is 97, and she enjoyed meeting her son's good friend. And I realized it was just one of those nice French things.
Yeah, which is lovely, right?
Yeah.
No pressure.
And I don't know about you, Audrey, but there are some women who come here for love. Like, they want to meet a French man, they want to marry. I know many women, and they're married and they're totally happy. And then there are some who come because maybe for the first time ever, they really want to focus on themselves or reinvent or, start a project. And that was true for me. I wasn't here for love. I actually was trying to, I guess it's such a cliche, but I was in a relationship with myself, and possibly for the first time discovering, what do I want out of life? And what is the life I want to have? What are the ingredients? What are the must-haves? And for me, it was really making sure that I that I put my needs and my happiness first. And I don't mean that in a selfish way, but when you're codependent, as I am, it's a critical growth move. And Paris helped a lot in that.
Mm-hmm. You know, I think that's a really, yeah, sorry, Audrey, go ahead.
Well, I'm retirement age. I really don't have to work anymore. I do work. I wrote a book. I occasionally sell real estate. So for me, at this stage of life, I felt I had the freedom to do pretty much what I wanted to do. And one of the things I had wanted to do going back 30 years was live in Paris. It was not an active dream, but it's something I had thought about. The first time I came to Paris, I fell in love with it. So when I have this political opportunity, and I was fortunate to have the resources and the time to do it, I feel this stage of my life has been my freest. And it's not so much trying to find out who I am, which I've done, but just having the freedom to do what I wanted to do. And that's really wonderful. It's really wonderful.
Yeah, and I can completely relate to that because that's why I'm doing this. So I think it does. I think, Lisa, that was a very good point. That I think it does. It's about fulfillment, not but self-fulfillment, and Paris is a city which goes right back to the 1920s, right, when all the writers went there to actually discover themselves and to be explore their creative side. So I think that's a really, really good point. All right, so I want to ask this next question here, and Mark, if you can put up the slide. Yeah, okay. How did the books come about then? When was it that you knew that you needed to write about this?
I did not come to Paris to write a book. What happened once I realized Trump was going to be around, I had to do something. And what I did was a piece for the Huffington Post.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just as someone at Morgan State University talked to me about being a Paris correspondent. That didn't go anywhere. And one day I said, why don't you just do an essay on punking out and coming to Paris? Mm-hmm. And I had a friend in the States who wrote for the Huffington Post. And this is when writers could just post an essay and see what happened.
Right.
But I did, and she talked me through it. I didn't know any, how wonderful I am with the technology. I didn't know how to do it. She told me. And one of the things it said when I posted, if your essay is an editor's pick, it will have an orange banner when it's published. And I had gone out with friends. I came back in, I turned on the computer, I saw my essay, and I saw this orange banner. And it meant it was running without advertising. And I guess a couple of days later, I realized it had gone viral. It got something like 14,000 hits.
Oh, wow.
That's when I said, well, maybe there's a book.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how my book came about.
Oh, that's fabulous. And Lisa?
Well, I knew that there was a book in the story of, finding an apartment after my mother died. I had started a blog at the behest of all my friends, and I purposefully kept the bigger story out of it in case there would be a book. But I hadn't worked on anything. And then I was featured in a New York Magazine article, and an editor from St. Martin's Press saw that article and offered me a book deal, which almost never happens these days.
Yeah, no, that's incredible too.
So I'm very aware how fortunate I was. I had 6 months to write it, and it was wonderful to be able to write it with an editor. It's like the author's dream. Mm-hmm. And that's how it came about.
Yeah. And you just so your book is my top seller on my book club page, by the way, on my list of memoirs. Audrey's has just gone up because I hadn't read it before this program. So I'm expecting some sales on that for you too. But thank you both for writing those memoirs, because I was, I've read both of your books twice at least. So if anybody wants to get them, there's certainly, and I'm going to give away a couple in a minute anyway. All right, so let's go to my last question, which could open up all sorts of fun bag of worms here, can of worms or whatever. Oh, we got the other, sorry, that I was supposed to replace that picture. Audrey, it did get replaced, but somehow we've got the other one up. My apologies. So how French are you now? What have you picked up from being around Parisians and Paris and whatever in terms of fashion, the way you eat, the way whatever, the way you drink, whatever.
I complain a lot, which is very
Oh, I
French,
like
apparently.
Yes, you're allowed to criticize things in Paris.
Yeah, I complain. I complain like the French do about everything, pretty much. If it's raining, if it's sunny, it's too sunny. If it's, I'm joking, but there, it is a place where you can feel free to complain.
Beautiful. Yeah. Audrey?
I think I've become more of a foodie.
Yeah.
I love French cuisine. And my favorite thing to do, people come here and they want to go shopping and they want to go to the museums and they want to see the cathedrals and they want to go to the Champagne region. I love going to restaurants with friends, eating and drinking. I could do that every day.
Yeah. It's so much more social, isn't it?
It's what?
The life is so much more social because people get out of their apartments, they go to cafes, even if it's for an hour with some friends.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That is
it's a city where you can do that alone and feel comfortable.
Absolutely.
I like that a lot. I mean, I do that in New York too, but in Paris, it just feels very, very comfortable. People don't bother you. And you can stay as long as you want, which is
good really stay. Oh, I love that too.
That's the beauty. That's the way I'm very French, is that I have more leisure time, or I create more leisure time. I value my personal time more. I definitely sit on those cafe terraces. Those are things that the French do really well. They take their vacations. They do all of those things, and those are great things to adapt.
Yeah. So, what's something unusual or funny or that's happened to you related to sort of getting to know the French culture? Did you make a faux pas? Did you order? I mean, I can remember ordering chicken livers, thinking it was chicken, and really not being able to eat them. But it made me realize I better look at every single word on the menu and not just the one that I recognized. Anything like that happen to you guys?
I recently ordered risotto, which is not anything I really ate much in the States, but I really like it here. And I thought I was putting grated cheese on it, and it turned out to be salt.
Oh,
and I kept saying, "Oh my God, this is so salty! It is so salty." And I didn't finish it, and I didn't complain, which is what I should have. And then I would have found out I put salt on instead of.
Oh, so you're not totally French yet, because
it would have been very French.
Yeah.
I need to work on that.
This is a little one, but a lot of boulangeries have two doors.
Yes.
And one is the entrance and one is the exit. They're not marked. You're just supposed to know. And for years, I was going in the wrong door in my boulangerie, and I kept bumping into people. And nobody said anything. Not one person said anything. And finally, I figured it out on my own. I don't know how, and thought, it's not a huge faux pas. I'm not going to lose sleep over it, but it's one of a million little things like that happen in a day, just by tiny little cultural differences, where you wouldn't even think about it until someone points it out.
No, and you got to roll with it. You just,
gotta roll with it.
Experience. Okay. So one last slide to wrap this story up for you guys. So now when you tell people, where is home now for you? Where do you feel the most like home?
The only reason Paris is not home is because I don't speak French.
Right.
So I don't feel I can claim any place where I don't speak the language as home. I have long said if I spoke French, I would live here. That I'm
There's still time.
I have a friend who's here 5 years. She doesn't speak any French at all. So it's possible.
I know. But,
but I understand.
As a writer and a communicator, I just feel, I think it's just.
Yeah, it's what drove me.
True.
I'm with you, Audrey, 100%. And it's what pushed me to really perfect my French. As a writer, I like to overhear the conversations. I want to understand what people are talking about when they pass me on the street, all those little things, small talk in the lobby of your building. It's so important. And I already forgot what the question was. What was the question?
Well, just what do you consider home more now, New York or
Oh,
Paris?
yeah. I've written many articles on it, and the answer is I can't decide
Okay.
because I feel very at home in Paris,
Mhm.
but I also love New York.
Right.
I feel very American.
Mhm.
I'm proud of it. I'm my mother's daughter, and I feel at home where there's friends, where I'm enjoying the food, where I'm, happy in the moment. It's, I guess, wherever I hang my chapeau is home.
Yeah.
But they both feel like home to me, and I feel that I'm an absolute byproduct of the two and their influence on me.
So you can have two homes then.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes, you can. I've always had two homes in the States. I do real estate,
Yeah.
and
A
I've
lot of
always
people do, right?
yeah, what you call a country home, a weekend home. I've had that for 25 years. And I think it's important for me. I like having what I call another place to be.
Yeah.
There's something about having another community,
Yeah, it's
another.
kind of like renewal, you can renew yourself. And
Yes, yes.
yeah. Somebody's asking here, it was related to you, Lisa. Why two doors in that you were talking about? Why are there two doors?
Well, because a lot of boulangeries are very narrow. So you enter at one side and you walk along the counter so you can see what you want. And then you pay and then you exit out that exit. So that's why not all do, but
Yeah.
that most of them do.
Yeah. And we had one other question that came through was saying, well, how do you deal with health issues? You have to see a doctor or something. What do you do?
Yeah, I have an English doctor.
Yeah, I had a health issue. And one of the things I love about the French, my friend Joe, I was not able to get one of my high blood pressure medications here.
Okay, good
I had
example.
a headache one night, and the next day, Joe took me to a pharmacy, and these two young French girl pharmacists went in the back room and put together compounds that approximated what I
Wow.
needed. And I really believe they saved my life.
Wow.
And my point with that was they'd never seen me before. I had no health insurance. I had no prescription from a doctor. I couldn't speak the language. I knew when they took my blood pressure, they were not going to let me out of the pharmacy without finding something to give me. And it cost all of €6. So I love the French healthcare system because I do believe those two young ladies saved my life or kept me from having a stroke. I'd never had anything like that.
I mean, you can get a carte vitale. I'm eligible, and it makes the healthcare very affordable. But even without it, I've been in emergency rooms at least 4 times for various things. I'm clumsy, and I paid, 57, 86, like peanuts. But it is good to have doctors you trust, and if they're bilingual, it's better, especially if you don't speak English. And they're here, and you can find them. And that's what's so great about getting involved in an expat community to guide you in those cases.
You do need to have health insurance in the U.S., though, right, to qualify to live in France. I think I've read that. Or at least
you get
Canada,
it's special insurance. My health insurance in the U.S. has nothing to do with my insurance for my time here in France. I had to buy supplemental insurance, and I have to actually supply the document of that when I submit for my visa.
Yeah. But that's quite reasonable too. I understand.
It's like $1,000 a year.
Yeah. You found that, Audrey, too?
Pardon?
Did you have any health insurance? Did you say you didn't have any health insurance?
No, I had no health insurance during that episode.
Right. Okay. Right. One lady, Kelly's saying, did your doctors communicate between Paris and New York? Is there any interaction that way? Yeah?
I've had that. Yes. Okay. I've had that where my doctor, I had some scans done here. And then when I was going back to the States, they communicated and sent all the files and had the conversations. Wow. I had to translate the documents, but yeah, it can happen. It does happen. And it was a great benefit that they could and did.
Okay. Well, listen, thank you both. I'm just going to ask you, what is one word that you would, parting word perhaps for all of us to describe how you feel about your life in Paris? Can you think of something?
Free.
Free. Beautiful.
Fulfilled.
Fulfilled. Free and fulfilled. Fa, 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 fa. Love it. Thank you. Okay, but before I let you go, I've got your two books up here and here. Right? There, oh, we've got them up there anyway. And so I'm going to do a giveaway draw right now. I have what I call a little Paris box. So, whoops, have I got it in the frame? There we go. And I put all the names of the people who signed up today. If they're not here, however, they don't get it. So let's see what I'm going to open it up. I don't have anybody to pick it, but I'm going to pick one here. First one. Well, let's see. Which book are we going to give? Let's give Audrey's book away first. Diana Armony, or Diane Armony. Is she here today?
Diane is there.
Oh, Diane is there. Good, good. Yeah, I know it takes a minute. All right, Diane, you're going to win Audrey's book. You're going to love it. You really are. Let me make sure I got the right one for you here. Yeah, okay, there we go. All right. All right, so let's do for Lisa's book. Just drop them on the floor. Here we go. Okay. And the winner is Marta Chavant, or Chavant.
Yes, I am here.
Whoa, thank goodness. Marta, you have won
Yay.
Lisa's book, Lucky
you.
Girl. You will
And
love
I
that
lived
one
in
too.
Paris in my 20s and now I am not in my 20s, but I moved to Aix-en-Provence just before COVID. So I have my own history of France.
Well, I'm sure you're going to enjoy this book very, very much. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So any other questions I see? No, everybody's just saying thank you for everything. So let me just wrap this up for all of us. So Audrey and Lisa, thank you so much. You know, we've enjoyed hearing your stories and fascinating to actually take the plunge to move to Paris. And we wish you all the best in the future. We'll be keeping in touch. And we'll leave you with a slide about your info about for those of you who want to follow or contact Audrey and Lisa, and I can certainly send it to you all afterwards. Their books, as I say, are also on my book club page on my website, Woman of a Certain Age in Paris.com. Just look under book club. Okay, so let me also once again, thank our sponsor, Christine Bakuk-Titus, who can turn, if Paris is your dream, she can turn it into an exciting reality. You can contact Christine by email at CBT, which are her initials, obviously, at tometparis.com. That's TOMETTE Paris, or by going to her website of the same name, tometparis.com. Now, Christine called her business Tomet because she liked the idea that a tomet in French is an antique finished tile that has been used in French homes for the ages. Very, very creative. But you can also contact me to send this info to you if you don't get it. So thank you again, Christine, and we are going to be hearing a lot more from her in the near future. Thank you, Mark, and the team in Vancouver. And once again, thank you to all my Paris fan club members. Stay well, stay safe, and plan that next trip to France. Au revoir et à la prochaine.